Hey everyone, welcome to the online program of Amrita Civil Service Academy. My name is Sibi Joy, and as part of our Mains Master Program 2020, in this video we'll be discussing questions about Indian society. So the question is, discuss the extent of feminization of poverty in India and the ways in which it gets manifested in Indian society. So the question talks about feminization of poverty in India and the ways in which it gets manifested in Indian society. So first we need to say what is feminization of poverty and how it gets manifested in Indian society. So all these you have to say. So in the first part, again, I'll go with the introduction, body and conclusion. That is the general structure we have to follow in our mains answer writing. So introduction, definition of what is feminization of poverty. That is, please get a working definition. Get a working definition of what is feminization of poverty. That will be the first part. Then you need to link it with the second part, where what is its, how it gets manifested in Indian society. So that is going to be mentioned in the second part. You need to say how it manifests itself in Indian society. You can just give a statistic, or you can just say it is manifested in so many different areas from womb to tomb or something like that. You can say all that. So that should be there in your introduction. In your body, you need to say what is feminization of poverty and how it gets manifested in India. You need to give a qualitative breakdown of what are the different spheres, what are the different sectors, what are the different angles and dimensions you can bring in where the feminization of poverty is clearly visible. Always substantiate these facts and figures with certain examples or case studies so that your answer looks much more smooth and looks much more rich. You can conclude, before the conclusion, you can say what is the way forward, what are the measures we can take to make sure that the feminization of poverty is reduced and where the incidence of poverty itself can be reduced in India. You can say all that, and you can conclude by saying that from this we can only build better. How do we build better? And we can lead to a better society where we can eliminate extreme poverty. That is how we can conclude in this. So I'll reiterate the basic structure: introduction, definition of feminization of poverty, link it to the second part, where how it gets manifested in Indian society. In the body, you need to say what is feminization of poverty and what are the different spheres in which it is visible. You can say quote multiple dimensions, and you can substantiate them with examples and certain facts and figures. And conclusion, and before the conclusion, you can just say certain way forward measures where how we can improve the society, how we can reduce the feminization of poverty, and how we can also reduce poverty. In conclusion, you can say that we need to build a better society where we can eliminate extreme poverty, and what are the which will lead to a better, more developed and a more poverty-free India. That is how we can finish it off. So that is the basic structure. We are going for the detailed explanation of it. So in the introduction, I told you definition. What is the definition? Definition of feminization of poverty. So I have a working, like I said earlier, we need a working definition. We don't need a textbook clear-cut definition. So understand what is poverty, what is feminization of poverty, read some journals or some books, and then create your own working definition. So UNIFEM describes it as the burden of poverty borne by women, especially in developing countries. Or you can say that feminization of poverty means growing proportion of women among those below poverty. Or you can say that women have lesser livelihood opportunities than men. As a result, their source of income is minimal, and this leads to poverty being impacting more upon the women than upon the men. So I've given three points are present in the key. Just look at it, create your own working definition, and keep that in mind with regards to what is feminization of poverty. Once that is there in your mind, go for the definition, then link it with how it gets manifested in Indian society. How does it get manifested in Indian society? You can say it gets manifested in the economic sphere, in the social sphere, in the political sphere. You can even bring it in the legal sphere. So you can say it gets, so I'm not saying that you must write it as it is manifested across the in the political sphere, social sphere, political, legal sphere, or social economic sphere. I'm just saying that it gets manifested in Indian society in different ways by this discrimination also happens from, this poverty is seen from womb to tomb. You can say all these, you can use all these phrases to show that discrimination or feminization of poverty has actually been happening since the child is inside the womb until the person dies and is in the tomb. So you can say all these words, you can use these phrases to show that how feminization of poverty is present in India. You can also quote by giving an example. You can bring in a statistic or something. That is, I leave that choice to you. But Again, you refer the key, make your own answer, find your own examples so that it makes it unique and you remember it inside your head. Remembering the examples and the statistics in the key is all well and good, but I urge you to take a note, put up a heading of women and put up certain statistics that you have found. Use the statistics which are present in the key, make a note of it and then use it. While a question again comes on women, you can put it up, quote it up, and that is how you retain these examples and that is how you maintain it inside your mind, so that when the question comes during the mains exam, it will be there in your fingertips and you can say it directly. You won't have to spend time recollecting about it. So that you can say, you can bring the intro like that, then you go for the body. In the body, you need to say feminization of poverty is happening. What are the major causes? Then you can have to say how it manifests. What are the measures to be taken? So you can say what are the causes. You can say that there are manifold causes, or you can just give a, instead of the causes, you can just give a description of what is feminization of poverty with an example. So that should be enough for just opening inside the body. Don't just jump inside how it manifests. Just say what is feminization of poverty. You can give a very good example of it. Then you can say how it manifests. So like I said, you can go for the economic angle, social angle, political angle, legal angle. So I'll give an explanation of how it manifests itself in the economic angle. So feminization of women are not paid as much as men. There is a gender gap in the payment sector. So for example, especially in informal jobs, men get paid more than women. So that when the amount of money given to the women decreases, their spending capacity decreases, their personal income decreases, and this results in a kind of poverty where they do not have sufficient money to make a living. So that is one thing you can say in the economic and especially in the informal sector. Even in the formal sector, there is a gap between the pay of men and women. So that is also a problem you can quote. What about in the other in the informal angle, there's a formal angle. What about in the social side? Social side, you can say that with regards to health facilities, many women do not do not have access to health facilities, or are not encouraged to pursue the health facilities for their any body conditions. They usually prefer the home remedies, whereas in the case of males, they do go to hospitals and get better health care. So that is also a problem. There has been an ingrained society tendency among women to not go to the hospital and create a burden upon the family. So in the case of social, you can say that. In case of education, as part of your social, you can say that even in education, higher education is denied to many women, even though they are more talented, or they have the mental capacity, they want to do it, but due to certain social constraints, they are not allowed, or they are not even encouraged to pursue higher education. So that is also a problem, you can say, as part of your social denial. So all this denial is preventing the women from growing to their potential, and that is how we can say that the poverty is the poverty of the social poverty is being feminized, with many women not having access to healthcare and not having access to education. So you can say that that is a kind of social poverty over there. In the economic angle, you can say there is a kind of social poverty, economic poverty, where women are not paid equally to men, or women have a lack of, women are not provided enough job opportunities as and when compared to men. That is a problem in the economic angle, that is a problem in the social angle. And even in the sector of transportation, while women, the cost of employing a woman for a woman to go for a job, the transport facilities need to be better, the housing area need to be better. So considering all this, the cost increases, and women are actually struggling to make ends meet with the very less amount of money which they actually get from the organizations, or from the daily income they get. So this has also created a problem, and that is also a kind of social poverty, and that is also a feminization of poverty. What about political angle? Earlier, like I said, there is an angle of husband Raj, where women themselves, despite being in positions, they cannot exercise their power without the help of without the authority, or without the permission of their husbands, or their sons, or their fathers, or father-in-law. So keeping this in mind, again, even in their political sphere, their power is curtailed, and even during the voting process, or during the exercising their democratic right to vote, They are mainly compelled by family members to vote for certain parties or for certain ideologies depending upon their position. So this is, even then the right to freedom is also curtailed upon them. What about the legal angle? One fact you can quote for the legal angle, you can say that is, India still has not had a Chief Justice of India who is a lady. So that is something you can say. You can even go for technological angle. Many women in India do not have access to smartphones. Many women in India do not have access to the internet, whereas comparatively the men in India have more better access to smartphones and the internet. So that is also, you can say, you can bring in different elements of feminization of poverty. Poverty is not only relegated to economic angle, but you can say there's also a social angle, there's also a technical angle, there's also a political angle, there's a legal angle, and you can say bring all these together to say that feminization of poverty is happening in India and this has to be overcome. So you can say how it manifests in Indian society, you can say all these angles. So from this, so I've said nearly 1, 2, 3, 4, nearly 5, I brought in 5 dimensions. That should be sufficient for this answer. If you feel that there are more dimensions you can find out, feel free to go for it. So I brought in 5 dimensions. Apart from that, what are the measures to be taken? So we brought in 5 dimensions. Find measures which can be taken to improve the economic angle, which can be used to improve the social dimension, the political dimension, the legal dimension, the technological dimension. For the technological dimension, you can say the schemes like Digital India program and Disha, which have improved the technical literacy among women. What about the political angle? The women's reservation, the urban local body elections and the local Panchayati Raj elections. Women's reservation bill which is pending in the parliament. In the legal side, you can say that India already has there are more judges being selected to the Supreme Court. For example, the later one among the most famous judges who is a lady is Justice Indu Malhotra. You can quote all these. You can say that the situation is slowly changing. In the social side, you can say that more opportunities are being given to women in education, more reservation or there's more encouragement for women to pursue higher studies. We've given more schemes so that they can access the health care better. They can reduce the nutrition deficiencies, Poshan Abhiyan, so many things we can quote. What about the economic angle? You can say you can bring in the fundamental duties, DPSP. You can talk about DPSP, fundamental duties, and you can even talk about certain legislations, some which ensure that both men and women are treated equally in the workplace, and women are also protected from any kind of legal harassment. So you can also talk about all this in the economic angle also, where women are also, these can be done. But while you can say this in the measures, in the way forward, you can say that all this, while already present, they need to be improved upon. They need to be streamlined and they need to be channelized effectively to make sure there is a holistic change across the entire spectrum. Now, many of these changes are happening only at the top level, and it's happening mostly in the urban areas. So what about the women who's really deprived in the rural areas? Who gives them the opportunity for them to reduce this feminization of poverty? You can say the schemes like Manarega need to be more strengthened. You need to show that women need to be more empowered. How do you bring empowerment of women? You need to bring in the concept of self-help groups. The example of Kudumbashree model in Kerala can be replicated all across India. Another example is how the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh by Mr. Yunus was also a good model to empower women. So all of these can be quoted, all of this can be said in part of your way forward. Bring that in. Then as part of your conclusion, you can say that, conclude it by saying that women form an integral part of our country and the growth of our country is dependent upon the women too. We cannot say that India is developed if the women in India are suffering. So we need to say that to bring about a complete wholesome development, women need to be improved and the feminization of poverty has to be reduced. Not only feminization of poverty, entire poverty or extreme poverty has to be eliminated, and for that we need to ensure there is effective coordination between the political side, from the private sector, from the civic society and from the individual citizens themselves, and only from that can we bring about an India which is more developed and which is poverty free. That is how you can conclude the conclusion. Whenever you bring it in the conclusion, make sure it is positive, make sure that you end it on a positive note, and if possible bring in some certain certain conventions or certain sustainable development goals or certain key phrases which have been present to show that India, it is possible to improve the position of women in country and make sure that there is feminization of poverty can be eliminated. So always end the answer on a positive note. I'll repeat the detailed explanation again in a small way. Introduction, talk about feminization of poverty, a working definition. then get to the second part, how it gets manifested in Indian society. Then go for the body, say why there is feminization of poverty or describe it, then say how it manifests itself in Indian society, bring in multiple dimensions. I've said 5 dimensions, and you can go for measures to be taken. Just say the opposite. See in these dimensions, what has the government done, what has the private sector done, what has the civic society done. You can say all this and you can bring about a different change. That can be done. Then from that, go for the conclusion, say the way forward. While all this has been done, we need to effectively channelize them, we need to strategize, we need to find more innovative solutions, bring in some unique case studies or examples. Like I said, you can quote the Kudumashri model, you can quote the Grameen Bank model, which was done by Mr. Yunus in Bangladesh. You can say all this to make sure it is better and make sure that it is possible for feminization of poverty to be eliminated. Then you can conclude by giving certain examples, or you can conclude by saying that on a positive note by saying all this coordination or a consonance between all these factors of government, civic society and private individuals need to come together to eliminate poverty and also prevent feminization of poverty in the future and make sure that India is developed. So we can conclude on a positive note like that, and that is how you can frame a good answer for Indian society for this question. So that is all for this explanation. This is CB Joy and I am signing off. Thank you.